Alright, hello, this is Dr. Daniel Jude, and I am giving you all a video lecture for this week. This is a new one to the course, so we're just going to go through it. I wanted to do a lecture for primary and secondary data to kind of establish the difference between those, because for this final project, you're going to be working with either primary or secondary data. So what I want to do is I want to kind of go over what primary data and research is, and secondary data and research. The use cases of both primary and secondary research, and how to conduct that primary research, as well as how to conduct that secondary research. It's a pretty simple little agenda. Let's be a fast one. So what primary research is, it involves collecting data that has not been collected before, which means it's not on the internet. You can't go out and get it. You have to, in a sense, create this data. The way it works is you just go out and do it, right? There's nothing to it but to do it, as they say. And the way you would do this in this course is through your survey research, which you're designing your questions as we speak. And you also have your topics and hypotheses that you're about to test, but some of you all have some topics that would involve secondary research, and we'll cover secondary research. But most proposals that I've read so far can be done in primary research and survey research. So another way you would get primary data is through field research, and you do this by going out and observing things on the field. For example, if you need to figure out what kind of contaminations are in the Ohio River, there is databases on that. But let's say they aren't databases on that, you would go out yourself with a vial of water and collect that water in a vial, and then test that vial for any chemicals, contaminants whatsoever, and then report, what the parts of lead are in the water, for example. Another way to do this is through interviews. When you're working with people, you can just sit them down and talk to them. Have a list that you want to talk to them about. Have some questions that you can discuss. Be sure to be able to lead the conversation. And then once they get talking, just be quiet and listen. And have them give you that data. Their experience in this case is the data. And this is going to involve you going in after the interview that you recorded. So you go to the recording of the interview, and then you transcript it into a word script. After you get the word script out, what you would do from there is kind of go through the interview and find themes, like themes of anxiety or something, for example. From there, you can go for observational research, and this is one of my favorites. It's more of a passive audience. Let's say that you want to understand the shopping habits of the average Louisvillian. So all you would do is get a computer or a notebook, and then go out and sit on a bench at the mall and watch people and how they interact at the mall and how they spend at the mall, and mark your data. They don't have to know that you're watching them for that data. It's completely fine to sit on a bench and take notes. That's kind of like observational research. And then finally, you got focus groups. Well, it's not really finally. This is another example. Focus group is when you get a group of people together, set them at a table, and then you lead the topic discussion, and then have them talk about it. Your job as a researcher in this case is to ensure the communication and the conversation is flowing at the table, so that you can find more enriching data and more enriching experience as the conversation unfolds, and people will let you know what they like, dislike, or what their experiences are in a particular topic. That's primary research. Your secondary research is data that's already been collected and is available to use. So in this case, it'll be on the EBSCO database at the U of L library. Here's a little link to EBSCO if you want, but for you all, you need to go to the U of L library and go to the A to Z databases, and you can find EBSCO in there. Google Scholar is another one, and for the lab this week, I'm going to show you live examples of secondary and primary research, and then there's going to be a little written assignment afterwards, a little short written assignment, nothing too much. The use case of primary research is primary research gets to explore relatively unexplored topics. It's mostly for niche studies for specific demographics, subcultures, etc. And for cutting-edge research, for example, brain studies with new technology. So let's say that you want to look at brain scans in the medical field and see if, I think a new one is like Alzheimer's. They're starting to do some research on Alzheimer's. And there's some new technology with those brain scans that allow people to see different things. And now you can take data on the new visuals and how these interact with medications, how these would enable folks. I think they found like a bacteria in Alzheimer's brains that are actively eating away at that brain tissue, and this was recently discovered. So that's primary research. Learning more about your subject in an in-depth way. You will find out things that you didn't know about using primary research. This is especially true for niche demographics, as above. Niche demographics or more rare demographics such as transgender community, LGBTQ community, things that are not exactly in the what's the word I'm looking for here? Majority population. So those are the kind of things you'll be using a lot of primary research. Interviews are great for niche populations, more specific populations. And then the use case of secondary research is you have more concrete findings with this because it is a number you can tie to it. It saves time and money because for a secondary data set, all you need to do is pull it off the internet, pull it off a library, pull it off some kind of database that you have access to. And it usually doesn't cost that much money, or it might be even free. And you also don't have to hire people to go collect data for you. You don't have to pay survey participants. You don't have to pay focus group participants. It's just cheaper altogether. This can be great for confirmation studies that serve to support and test theories. You can just use the data and what the theory asks of the results, and then see if the data that you find after you model it can support or test those theories. So, and then public data can be free. Kind of walked over that. So conducting that primary research, again, you have survey research is one way you can do it. You just hand out surveys to folks and have them take it, and then use those answers and put it into a data sheet. Focus groups, same deal. Not really. It's kind of the same as interviews. You talk to people at the table, have them cover a topic, and then you go back home after you recorded the interview or the focus groups, and then you transcribe it into a script, which can take some time. And then from there, you look through that script for themes that were common, that people mentioned a lot, and then you kind of categorize these things as variables. Focus group and interviews work the same way. Interviews are just more one-on-one. Online chats, you can talk to people online as you would with any other interview, or email, or telephone. These are all interview methods. Actively sampling objects. The subject is not a person. Again, I kind of brought this up with the water example. Other things you can like rock data if you're into that field. Effectiveness of needles will be another way to do it. You're just sampling objects. And finally, the observation, which I brought up with the mole ordeal. Conducting secondary research is much more simple. Identify your variable interest. You find that database on the variables within your topic. Then you model it. In other words, you run things like t-test, ANOVA, chi-square, and we'll learn more on those things as the semester goes forward. And then you just report your findings, and that's it. So that is a brief introduction of survey of primary and secondary data. I hope, and then the lab will be posted on the lab day. And I will see you then.